On this episode of Employment Law After Hours, we're going to discuss memes.
Brian.
Memes.
Memes are up next on Employment Law After Hours.
On this episode of Employment Law After Hours, we're going to discuss HR's favorite memes, what they mean to us, what they mean to you, and what are the legal takeaways, because after all, this is a employment law episode. But first, we are attorneys, but we're not yet your attorneys, so therefore don't take anything we say as legal advice in this episode. Informational purposes only. See the full legal disclaimer below in the description.
All right, Brian, up first we have the theme of 2020.
It represents, I feel, all of HR during 2020, literally carrying the companies on their backs through all the employment law changes. So we wanted to start here, just as an ode to the HR representatives out there in the world, to know that we do care about you, and that's why we put out these episodes. So hit that subscribe button. Now let's move on to the next meme.
Oh, wait, real quick. If you look real close, you can see Brian and me and every other employment attorney underneath the HR.
Holding
on
up.
that floor.
Literally holding everything up. It's so accurate. All right, let's transition here to the second meme. We're going to try to do these in rapid form, spending more time on some than others, but hey, they're all fun, so let's just get to it. Essential workers are trying to process the 35th policy change in the last 3 weeks. I really feel like, Monica, this is another ode to HR.
I really feel like also it hits home with how many times the federal, state, and local governments have updated their own regulations. It's been chaos the last 12 months trying to keep up with and change everything and make sure we're in compliance. That's really what Brian and I look like when we show up at work sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean,
we're
just
looking real frazzled.
Looking back to the vaccine changes over the last 3 weeks, it's clear that things are changing very rapidly, and we really do, again, want to continue to thank the HR professionals of the world for all that you do in keeping your companies compliant, following the outside secondary sources to ensure you're staying on top of the legal changes. You know, it's so important that the employer compliance continues despite all the constant state and federal legal changes that are occurring every day.
Yeah, I think it's probably better to look like Chris Farley in this picture, trying to keep your policies updated than however it would look if you were sitting in the courtroom trying to figure out what to do next if you don't keep them updated.
Isn't that the truth? So this next one I threw in, Monica doesn't know it. I really wanted to throw this meme that's up on the screen now as an ode to Employment Law After Hours mascot Oliver, who is also a corgi, similar to this employment lawyer.
Additionally, also a consummate professional.
Moving on. So the meme that was actually kind of the precursor to the idea of this episode was HBO's screw up from 2 weeks ago now, where they decided to blame an intern for sending out an email that was not meant to be sent out to all their subscribers. You know, we mistakenly sent out an empty test email to a portion of our HBO Max mailing list this evening. We apologize for the inconvenience, and as the jokes pile in, yes, it was the intern. No, really, and we're helping them through it. I mean, first of all, the disrespect of HBO to just throw an intern under the bus. I mean, that's like such an easy out, right? I mean, everyone expects it to be the intern, but they didn't have to go out and say it.
Yeah, like Brian used to blame things on me all the time when things went wrong when I was the intern.
Absolutely.
You just really take one for the team.
But I will say this, cycling this back to employment law, hey, at least HBO is doing the right thing in helping their intern get through this tough time of this mistake, and I'm sure at the end of the day they're going to give this employee more training. But all right, here, let's get into some more legal employment law issues.
Another intern one. My first day on the job, I was in an elevator when a nice-looking man smiled and said, "Your face belongs on a cathedral." Without missing a beat, I replied, "If comparing me to a gargoyle is the best pickup line you've got, it needs work." So wow, sexual harassment in the workplace.
And the only reason this becomes sexual harassment is because it apparently was said by the CEO of the company she was interning at. So we're going to kick off a series of some sexual harassment memes here in a second, but definitely don't be making compliments to people in the elevator that you don't know, because they could be employees and subject you to sexual harassment lawsuits. All right, another sexual harassment meme. I mean, first of all, the cat is adorable, but again, you as an employer cannot allow your employees to lay on each other's laps, because that's just leading to sexual harassment. So let's definitely avoid that. Otherwise, you're going to have a supervisor who walks in showing this face. Do you want sexual harassment training? Because that's how you get sexual harassment training. I mean, I can just see this right now. This HR manager walks in, sees the cat on the lap, instant sexual harassment. Everyone's doing training. All right, so shifting gears out of sexual harassment. Monica, what does this meme say?
I know a lot of people who are currently dealing with this, looking for someone aged 22 to 26, but with 30 years of experience.
So, looking beyond the literal impossibility of this, I think it is still a very real issue. As an employer, make sure you're putting out realistic job descriptions that indicate the actual number of years that you're looking for and the experience you're looking for, and make sure that it makes sense for the position that you're hiring.
Turns out the math has to line up.
So while we're looking at this, age limitations in job advertisements are actually a possibility for a claim of age discrimination. So if you're putting in a job advertisement that, hey, you're looking for someone who right out of college or has 2 to 4 years of experience, or putting in some other sort of limitation on that position that would essentially eliminate people over the age of 40, you could definitely be hit with an age discrimination claim. We've seen it. We've seen the EEOC enforce it. So definitely be reviewing your job postings just to make sure you're complying with all age discrimination issues. No pets allowed at work. That's employment discrimination. So Monica, is this employment discrimination?
Well, it depends on if you're talking about sexual harassment or the ADA.
Explain the sexual harassment piece. We'll cycle back.
Well, Brian, I feel like it sort of speaks for itself. Probably inappropriate to touch your coworkers without consent. No pets allowed at work. Otherwise, no pets allowed at work is something that can create some implication under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So if you have an employee who for some reason may need to have a service animal because of their disability, that's something that you're going to have to evaluate under the reasonable accommodations of the ADA.
Absolutely. And along the same lines, maybe it's a future episode, so subscribe for that. But we could talk about the differences at some point between service animals and emotional support animals. All right, moving on. Oh, here, let's talk about the FLSA. My favorite topic of all of employment law.
Interesting.
It really is. I don't know why. It's just so intricate, so I really enjoy it.
I kind of think I'm a Title VII fan.
Discrimination?
Yeah.
Ways to stand up for all the employees.
You know me, an advocate for the little guy.
This is actually Monica, is the child in this boat, and it's me rowing the boat as I asked her to do more overtime. That's why we salaried her, so we can avoid this issue. I feel like this meme is really putting across the issue in society where employers kind of look the other way when their employees are doing overtime and not reporting that overtime. Don't forget, companies out there, if you are aware or have reason to know that your employee is performing overtime, you need to investigate and then pay that overtime. You can obviously reprimand the employee on the backside for not reporting the overtime or requesting permission, but you still have to pay it in the interim. You can't just not pay it because you didn't approve it. So
and that can be something as simple as you're the boss in the office and you're leaving and you see someone still working 10 minutes after 5 o'clock ends.
I mean, yeah, if you're coming to the office every day at 8:30 and that employee's already there, and you're leaving the office every day at 6 o'clock and that employee's still there, you may have reason to know that that employee's working overtime. At-will employment, here we go.
This right here is what it's like to work with
some of our colleagues.
Yes.
When your boss makes a joke and you don't want to get fired, force laughing. So is it possible, Monica, for an employer to fire an employee for not laughing at their joke?
Well, Brian, I haven't experienced it yet. However, that is not to say that that couldn't be something that precedes termination.
The Atwill employment doctrine states, in most states that have this, that you can fire an employee for any reason or no reason at all, as long as it doesn't violate any other law, such as Title VII or state discrimination statutes. So yes, Monica, I could terminate your employment for failing to laugh at some of our coworkers' jokes.
If some of our coworkers were as funny as me, it would not be an issue.
I want to introduce the next one. As an alum of The Ohio State University, I feel like it's always opportunistic to jab at Michigan and their coach Jim Harbaugh. So Jim Harbaugh, of course, experienced the Atwill employment doctrine. After 49 wins, 3 NFC championships, and 1 Super Bowl, still gets fired by the 49ers. I love it. I love to see it. That is the Atwill employment doctrine at its best. It was also a major blessing in disguise for the Buckeyes because then he went to go coach Michigan, and we've all seen how that's gone. Moving on. Monica, would you like to introduce this meme and what it means for time theft?
Well, Brian, the meme probably speaks for itself. Maybe we can talk about your use of company time to find these memes.
Look, okay, it was overtime. It was not done during regular hours. Now, if you have employees that are making memes on company time,
scrolling Facebook, tweeting Twitter.
If they spent less time on Instagram, they probably wouldn't have accidentally sent an email to the entire HBO Max subscriber base. No, but if you have employees at work that are wasting time on the internet, on social media, or making or finding memes, you can, of course, discipline them in accordance with your disciplinary policy. It's certainly not an activity that's protected in any way, as long as it is not a bona fide lunch break.
Which Speaking of breaks,
I think this was you last week.
that looks like me at least once a day. And by that, I mean the attitude on that man's face.
So while we're on the subject of breaks, don't forget your 15-minute short breaks under the FLSA. Again, my favorite topic. Are paid. Your bona fide lunch breaks where employees are allowed to leave the place of employment, leave their desk, not have to worry about work responsibilities for that 30 minutes. Those are unpaid. Back to the memes. They can look at those on the bona fide lunch break, no problem. They can look like this gentleman on the screen during their lunch breaks, no problem. But outside of that, disciplinary policy can come into play.
Yeah, circling right back around to our at-will provision. At-will employment says that if you're 30 minutes into a 15-minute break,
maybe if Jim Harbaugh spent less time looking at memes, Michigan would win against Ohio State. So,
speaking of time issues.
Speaking of time issues, let's talk about employees who are late to the workplace. This is the third time you've been late to work this week. Do you know what that means?
For Brian, that does mean it's a Wednesday because dear Brian doesn't get into the office until 9:30.
You know, if you have an employee who's late 3 days in a row, absolutely follow your disciplinary policy. If you have an employee who just decides to abandon work for 3 days, you know, most of your handbooks, I'm sure, if not, you know, definitely make sure that it's in there. But employees that just don't show up for 3 days, no call, no show, definitely follow your disciplinary policy. You can terminate, just follow those handbooks. Dress codes, here we go. My boss told me dress for the job you want, not the job that you have. Now I'm sitting in a disciplinary meeting dressed as Wonder Woman. Did you ever want to be a superhero?
No, I always wanted to be a lawyer, and now I'm wondering why.
So dress codes, of course, you know, most employers have handbook policy provisions discussing the dress codes and the requirements for employees. First and foremost with dress codes, make sure they're not discriminatory towards any particular gender. You know, make sure you don't have a policy in there that requires women to wear skirts, but men can wear pants. You know, don't have anything that limiting or anything that's based on gender. However, I think it would be appropriate if most employers had a dress like their favorite superhero day. That seems kind of cool.
And if you have any questions about inappropriate limitations and restrictions on your dress code when it comes to gender issues, you should watch our episode last week that talks about the Supreme Court's extension of protections for the LGBTQ community.
Back to the superhero, though.
Oh, God.
So I have always wanted to be Batman because it's important in life to always be yourself. Unless you can be Batman, then you should always be Batman. Moving on. Can we talk about Elmo for a second?
This is Brian's favorite meme, so
it's not my favorite meme, but it is an important meme to discuss because a lot of employers ask, do they have to pay their employees for excessive bathroom breaks? Again, the answer to that is it a bathroom break 15 minutes or less? It's not a bona fide lunch break under the FLSA. The answer is yes. Make sure you're paying your employees for using the bathroom for those, 15-minute breaks.
Yeah, so this one's definitely Brian. The next one's going to be me. And do you have to pay your employees when they cry in the bathroom? Same answer applies.
Same answer. Yeah, same answer. All right. Final meme. Okay. Can I return to the office? I'm vaccinated, I promise. Shameless plug to our prior vaccine episodes, which we promised we weren't going to bring up again, but here we are. The answer to this question is yes, employers can verify their employees' vaccinated status before allowing them to return to the workplace. So
private employers can make them get the vaccine.
You can wink all you want, but your employer can verify in most states that you have received the vaccine.
Well, that about does it for this real fun episode. If there's an HR meme out there that you love that we didn't cover, make sure you comment it below or tag us in it on our Instagram at Law After Hours.
Great, that's awesome. We'll see you next time.
See ya.